Hi everybody, today's lesson is based on an artist named André Derain. That's the French way to pronounce it, I guess. André Derain. André Derain. And he was part of the Fauvist movement. So the Fauvist movement came just shortly after Impressionism. And les fauves, which is the French word, les fauves, actually translates to wild beasts. So his artwork, or this type of artwork, he was one of the main leaders of this movement. And his artwork takes color and makes it a really strong element in the painting. It also uses a very painterly, abstract style. And lastly, it really simplifies the image. So when you see a tree, you can say, oh, a tree should have a green or a brown trunk and green leaves. But he said, well, let me turn the trunk purple or red or some other more wild color. They were really characterized for wild brushstrokes and being kind of out there. They weren't always well received, but now through time in art history, they're actually, it was a very small and short movement in time, but it's really created some beautiful artwork for us to admire. So again, our artist is André Derain, and his painting was called The Turning Road. So our project today is going to be to make a landscape, just like him, and to use Fauvism, to use bright colors. This is something I've actually incorporated into my own practice as an artist. I really am drawn to bright colors, and I feel like there's a lot of energy that you can exude in an artwork when there's brightness to it. So that's a reason that I'm personally drawn to the Fauvist movement and artists like André Derain. So with that being said, you can start with the paper that you'll have in your package, and you can draw a landscape. Whatever landscape you choose, it's really up to you. And again, think of it being simplified. So I'm going to take inspiration from André Derain's Turning Road, and I'm going to curve a road across my artwork and have it ending here, kind of like his does. And for the trees, I'm actually going to use wintry fir trees because I'm originally from Canada. So I grew up around a lot of pine trees, and I think they're really beautiful. So I'm going to draw some trees like so. This is kind of a winter inspired. Maybe this is a poplar tree. We have a lot of poplars in Canada too. I really love the live oak trees of Houston, but this is back to my childhood. So we'll have that tree, and then maybe we can add in like a little log cabin back here with a wooden log. So sketch out an image that inspires you. Forest, beach, nature, your choice of landscape. Maybe have a little path too. It could be another curving path. So it's really a simplified image. It's not an overly difficult composition. Once you have it drawn in, we're going to use a really great material that we can fill up the page with really well, which is watercolor or water-soluble oil pastels. Now again, traditionally, let me think of what colors should be in this. Green trees, brown trunks. I really do like those wintry colors, but I'm going to change them up. And I'm going to make the trees, immediately I'm drawn to purples. Purple's good for darkening. So I'll see where I want to darken. And I'm actually going to use the purple all at once and think of where I want to have purple in my drawing, in my landscape. Next, I think I will have some, let's see, ooh, maybe some soft pink for the trunk on this one, and a soft pink trunk here, and maybe even blue, a lot of blue leaves. I'm gonna add blue. As you can see, I'm drawing in kind of wild, Fauvist, shady brush strokes, but all of this is gonna come to life more once we use the water. So I'm using watercolor paper as well, so that absorbs the water really well. Right now I'm thinking of a light source coming from this side, so my darker shadows will be over here. But again, I never normally would color a tree blue and purple, so you have to think a little outside the box as you're working on these. Get back to my purples. And how about, I'm trying to think of snow or snowy covered field. Would normally be like soft blues and greens, but I think I'm gonna brighten it up with some yellow. So we're gonna do sort of a yellow light coming across there. I'm not gonna fill that in too darkly yet. Let's finish up with some more blue leaves on these trees. So really bright, bright colors. Maybe even a tree trunk that goes from orange to pink. And what color could I do that log cabin? Maybe we'll do the log cabin green. Again, we're just flipping these colors on their head and challenging our usual concept of color to make it into something a little more Fauvist. Okay, so I'll make myself a green cabin here. Now again, the lines don't have to be perfect because at the end we're going to come back and tighten things up with a black Sharpie. Let's do we'll do a blue front door on our little cabin. Now the road, that's a big part of the artwork. I'm wondering how I should bring that to life. We don't have any light green yet. Maybe we will do a light green path. So now it's really getting bright. Maybe we'll add some dark green to certain areas. A little bit of light green there. And a little more yellow on my hills. Okay, let's see how this is going to look once I add in the water. It's helpful to use a brush that's kind of hard on the end for this. We're going to start with these trees. And as you can see, this works a lot like paint, which is great, but it's not as messy. I'm being mindful of my brush strokes right now and also the color. So once I use that dark purple, if I want to go back to the light blue, I would have to rinse my brush off. I'm going to rinse it a little bit so I can use some light blue here. You can actually use the same brush for this whole project, as you can see, as long as you're rinsing it off in between. Normally a sky would be blue, but we are going to make it green.
André Derain was born in France, just outside of Paris. He originally studied to be an engineer, but he decided after his military service that he wanted to abandon his career and study art. And it's a friend of his, the famous artist Henri Matisse, who helped persuade Derain's parents to allow him to study art. In the summer of 1905, the two of them, Derain and Matisse, worked together, painting images in a small Mediterranean village. These artworks were then displayed at a salon in the fall. It was at this salon that a famous art critic saw their work and dubbed it Les Fauves, or the wild beasts, and that was how the Fauvist movement was born. The critics saw their artwork and saw the really bright and unnatural colors, and that's what led him to call it the wild or Fauvist artwork.
All right, once you've finished the image, for the most part with the oil pastel, you can actually come back with oil pastel again to do more detail. So like this part is dry now, so I can come back in and add some lines back in to give it a little more detail, like I'm doing here. And then that'll give your painting more of a layered feel. So you can come back in with those colors. This tree looks like it could use some definition, so I can add some in there. Definitely needs something in here. It's looking a bit murky. And a little purple for the shadows. So this is once it dries fairly fast, but don't do this while it's still wet or it won't work as well. So you can add in a little more definition. And then the very last thing you're going to do is outline certain parts of it with a black Sharpie to give it even more. So this part you're going to have to wait till it's dry. As you can see, I didn't quite wait. So that section's not dry enough for my marker. Let's see what sections are dry enough. Here we go. You can outline it. So this is our Fauvist landscape. It's a really fun project. It's really relaxing. It's not intimidating because it's such a fluid project. It doesn't have to be perfect. Again, think of simplifying your image and then finishing it off with the black lines around it at the end.